Subcommittee on Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies will come to order. Welcome to the Subcommittee Markup of the Fiscal 25 bill. Welcome Chairman Cole, Ranking Member DeLauro, Ranking Member Cartwright, and all. Washington's spendthrift habits continue to come with significant consequences. Everyday goods cost more due to elevated levels of inflation, and as a result, interest rates remain painfully high. These are real-world effects of reckless and wasteful spending that happens all too often in this town. And just last week, the nation received a dire warning from the Congressional Budget Office. Without mincing words, CBO announced that in the next 10 years, the debt held by the public will skyrocket to more than $50 trillion. Let me repeat that number, $50 trillion. We can and must do everything within our power to create a sustainable economic trajectory. This legislation, which provides a total discretionary allocation of $78.288 billion, which is effectively $1.275 billion, or 2% below the fiscal year 24 spending level, right sizes and appropriately funds the agencies under our jurisdiction and restrains government overreach by Washington bureaucrats. The politically motivated and weaponized Department of Justice is restrained and will no longer follow the political whims of the Biden administration. The Federal Bureau of Investigation will be refocused on its core competencies, and numerous ill-advised rulemakings by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives that challenge constitutional rights will be stopped in their tracks. Importantly, this bill also takes the fight directly to fentanyl and all its supply chains, including the precursor chemicals coming out of China. Our country must firmly get a grip on this opioid epidemic that's ravaging our communities from coast to coast, including mine in Kentucky. This legislation will ensure the Drug Enforcement Administration remains at the tip of the spear as we tackle this crisis. It also provides increased funding to the Bureau of Prisons and invests heavily in local law enforcement to ensure our cities and towns are safe and secure, and to provide the peace of mind that hardworking Americans deserve. Additionally, this bill addresses China and its aggressive overreach by making considerable investments in American science agencies. The global economic race is underway, and it's pitting America and its allies against China. Legislation like the fiscal year 25 CJS bill will deliver the resources needed to guarantee the United States remains the leader in science, technology, and research. Moreover, the moon is once again within our reach, and we will soon go beyond the next frontier. This bill makes strategic investments in order to ensure NASA is not bound by the limits of gravity. In short, the fiscal year 25 bill is an important step in the right direction. I would like to thank all of the subcommittee members for their attentive attitude and diligent participation in budget hearings these past few months. I especially want to thank Ranking Member Cartwright for his partnership in this endeavor. We may not agree on every policy or funding level, but it's a pleasure to sit beside you. I also want to acknowledge Chairman Cole and thank him for his measured hand atop the full committee as he steers the entire team through this difficult yet critically important process of funding the government. Additionally, I want to thank Ranking Member DeLauro as she continues to be a force for her party as Congress crafts these bills from the beginning stages. Lastly, thanks to both the majority and minority staff for assisting with the development and production of this year's bill. They worked hard and long, and I think very expertly. As I said earlier, the fiscal year 25 bill makes the right investments for our nation, our economy, our competitiveness, our security, and for the American public. Let me now turn to our Ranking Member Cartwright for any opening remarks he cares to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Chairman Cole. Thank you also to my ranking member, Rosa DeLauro, for your wisdom and guidance throughout this process. And thank you to Chairman Rogers for his continued friendship, for all his hard work this year as chair of the subcommittee. We have had some very productive subcommittee hearings this year, and I appreciate the chairman's leadership and initiative on moving them forward quickly and on time. I also greatly enjoyed the moon tree planting event that the chairman hosted on the Capitol grounds a few weeks ago with the 4 astronauts who will soon journey around the moon as part of NASA's Artemis II mission. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention my appreciation of the chairman's collaboration with my staff on Operation Unite and bringing that to Pennsylvania. Regrettably, I must oppose the appropriations bill that is before us today, and what I let the record reflect the shocked expression on the chairman's face at this time. What I regret is that I have some hard things to say about this bill as drafted. And I have to say that you don't usually do that in subcommittee markups, but we didn't have a full committee markup last year, and this may be my last chance to intone these things. This is a bill that significantly reduces support for law enforcement in this country and other efforts to secure the safety and prosperity of the American people. It would greatly reduce the number of FBI special agents and analysts, and these are outstanding public servants who keep us safe by preventing, investigating everything from human and narcotics trafficking to public corruption to kidnappings, mass attacks, cyber crimes, and much, much more. The FBI's ability to catch crooks would definitely be damaged and public safety compromised as a result of this bill. It's a bill that also cuts funding for the Justice Department's National Security Division, which works to protect American citizens against terrorism, espionage, and other threats to our national security. It weakens the Bureau of Industry and Security's power to prevent advanced American technologies from bolstering the military capabilities of Russia and the People's Republic of China. This bill would reduce the number of ATF agents working with state and local law enforcement to fight gun violence and firearms trafficking, while adding several policy riders that would make it easier for firearms to end up in the wrong hands. This bill would reduce the number of federal prosecutors, curbing our nation's ability to prosecute dangerous criminals. In addition, this bill sharply reduces grants that prevent juvenile delinquency, hate crimes, and violence against women. It completely eliminates funding for community violence intervention and prevention grants, and the Justice Department's Community Relations Service, which for nearly 60 years has worked to mediate and end community conflicts across the country, is essentially canceled by the bill before us today. I believe that all of this is the wrong approach for our CJS bill. A better approach would be funding levels that make lawbreaking harder. Some other steps in the wrong direction are the large cuts to programs aimed at empowering distressed communities and individuals. Economic Development Administration grants, which help create jobs and revitalize local economies, largely in rural areas, are gutted by more than 35%. The bill also cuts funding for federal agencies that help promote American exports and fight the unfair trade practices of other countries. The Legal Services Corporation, which provides critical basic civil legal aid to the poorest American families, seniors, and veterans, is cut by $71 million. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which helps protect Americans against job discrimination and sexual harassment, it's cut by $35 million. And last but not least, the budget of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is cut by more than $600 million below the current level. That is particularly troubling as NOAA protects the American people in numerous ways. It provides timely and accurate forecasts of the weather, including extreme weather, which our agricultural sector depends on. These days, some kind of extreme weather seems to be affecting our country nearly on a weekly basis. NOAA helps ensure the safe navigation of our ships to our ports, and NOAA advances our scientific understanding of changes to the Earth's climate and how they affect our economy as well as our safety. These are all critical efforts, and most of these will be harmed under this funding level. We can talk all day long about debt and deficits, but make no mistake, these harmful cuts, as laid out in this draft bill, are made to pay for the huge tax cuts for the well-off and well-connected in this country. For all of these reasons, I urge my colleagues to oppose this bill. As we all know, this process does not end with the subcommittee action today. As the process moves forward, we need to do much more in all of these important areas. Thank you, and I yield back.
I now recognize the distinguished chairman of the full committee, Mr. Cole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And before I go to my prepared remarks, I want to assure my good friend, the ranking member of the subcommittee, we will have this bill heard in full committee. I think that's a very legitimate point that my friend made. We did not last year, and I regret that. But I'll tell you the same thing I told my very good friend, the ranking member of the full committee, when I became chairman of Labor H, courtesy of my friend Chairman Rogers at the time. That bill had not been heard in a number of years, and my friend had not had the opportunity to make her points and her suggestions and offer her ideas about how we could proceed forward. And I assured her that we would indeed have a full hearing. Now, I will tell you, she wasn't 100% sure I could keep my word. So we had a robust subcommittee hearing that lasted a long time, which was fair, no complaints. But in the end, we had that full hearing, and we continued to do that. And I just want to assure, again, my friend, the ranking member of the subcommittee, and certainly my friend, the ranking member of the full committee, we will have those hearings. And we will have a robust process, and I always see this as a process, as not a take it or leave it, but an opening position, a negotiation. At some point we'll be dealing with our friends in the United States Senate. We'll be dealing directly with the administration. So, but my friend was fair to raise the point, and I just want to assure him that will not happen again. Thank you, Chairman Rogers. and thank you, Ranking Member Cartwright and Ranking Member of the full committee, Delora, and to all the members of the subcommittee for your participation in the process. From the frontiers of U.S. law enforcement and economic trade all the way to space exploration, the Commons, Justice, Science Subcommittee oversees agencies consequential to our country. The fiscal year 2025 bill before us today brings savings to taxpayers and protects the constitutional rights of Americans against political weaponization of the justice system. It enhances accountability and oversight to address the politicization and overreach of the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Numerous regulations that impede American citizens and businesses are prevented from moving forward or outright prohibited in this bill. Importantly, the bill makes critical investments to confront fentanyl and the deadly scourge of addiction that's stolen far too many American lives. The legislation also robustly supports our local law enforcement and their work to protect our communities. Finally, the bill prioritizes our science agencies and appropriately funds the advancement of space exploration at NASA. It also confronts China's efforts to steal U.S. technology and innovation. The fiscal year 2025 Commerce, Justice, Science, and Appropriations bill is a product that reflects making needed decisions to rein in wasteful spending and limit this administration's overly political agencies that should have no part in American society. I'd like to thank Chairman Rogers for his thoughtful approach to this bill, and my good friend, the ranking member of the subcommittee, for working with the chairman. I look forward to the bill's advancement through the appropriations process. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank the chairman, and to thank him especially for helping us get this bill put together. I feel confident the full committee is in great hands. I now recognize the distinguished ranking member of the committee, Ms. DeLauro, for her remarks.
Thank you very, very much, Chairman Rogers, and a thank you to Ranking Member Cartwright as well. I also want to say a thank you to Chairman Cole for talking about the ability for us to be able to go to to full committee to get these bills on the floor, et cetera. That is the goal. Ultimately, our job is to come together as Democrats and Republicans to craft the bills, get them over the finish line for the benefit of the American people. I want to also say a thank you to the majority and minority staff for your great work in this effort, especially Bob Bonner, Nora Fay, Faye Cobb, and Shannon McCulley. I just say to the chairman of the subcommittee, it will not be as much of a shock to you to find that I am opposed to the bill. Right? The majority's Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies bill for fiscal 2025, in my view, is dangerous and it's reckless and makes Americans less safe from violence and from crime, whether they're in their homes or in their communities. The bill politicizes and defunds law enforcement by cutting FBI and ATF agents and analysts, and the bill defunds prosecutors that keep dangerous criminals off of our streets. The bill continues the majority's relentless campaign of attacks on American women's health and their safety. This bill attacks law enforcement and threatens U.S. national security. It hurts rural communities, and it tilts the economic playing field against everyday Americans. The majority's bill defunds the FBI by nearly $1 billion, inevitably leading to agents and analysts at the Bureau losing their jobs and severely obstructing the Bureau's ability to keep Americans safe and keep dangerous criminals off the streets. And I am baffled as to why the majority's bill would inhibit federal law enforcement's ability to do their jobs, to keep the American people safe, and to administer the rule of law. The FBI works day in and day out, year-round and around the world, keeping American families safe. And just in the last 6 days, a Missouri man was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison for sexual abuse against 2 girls. An Idaho woman was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for causing the methamphetamine-induced death of her 7-week-old baby. 10 gang members involved in narcotics and firearms trafficking were charged with various felonies in Minnesota. A former tribe president in South Dakota was sentenced on federal counts for defrauding the Oglala Sioux tribe. A New York man pleaded guilty to straw purchasing the shotgun that was used to fire shots at Temple Israel in Albany. 3 Hells Angels were sentenced to life in prison for racketeering, conspiracy, and related crimes. An Indian national charged in connection with a foiled plot to kill American citizens in New York City was extradited to the United States. This all happened within the last week, thanks to public servants at the FBI whose jobs may be eliminated under this bill. The FBI is helping to prosecute each of these crimes, bring these criminals to justice as they do in each of our districts every single day without concern for politics. And defunding law enforcement is not the only way this bill jeopardizes American safety. Far from it. The majority's bill is leaving schools, grocery stores, churches, concerts, and communities vulnerable to more devastating mass shootings by making it easier for guns to end up in the wrong hands. And they slash legal services. They cut the agencies and programs engaged in early intervention and crime prevention in our communities. Violence Against Women Act grants, juvenile justice grants, hate crimes grants, and other resources that prevent violence are all cut, leaving communities more vulnerable to crime. Finally, this bill is bad for the economy. It is bad for rural Americans, as the majority's bill cuts economic development administration programs that create jobs, predominantly in rural communities. And this bill is bad for everyday hardworking Americans across the country who cannot keep up with the high cost of living by cutting funding for the Department of Justice's Antitrust Division. After years of mergers across industries allowed the biggest companies, from grocery and home goods stores to airlines, to acquire their closest competitors, these corporations have relentlessly and shamelessly pursued and acquired record profits by price gouging Americans out of every dollar they can. Corporations have limitless resources for lawyers and lobbyists to fight for their interests. We must ensure that the Department of Justice can go toe-to-toe, fight to keep the economy fair for everyday Americans. Because this bill defunds and politicizes law enforcement, harms women, hurts the economy, makes our communities less safe from violence and crime, I cannot support this bill. Democrats are at the table, ready to pass legislation that protects American safety, and I implore the majority to join us. It is time to govern. Thank you, and I yield back.
Do any other members wish to make opening remarks? All right. Seeing no amendments, I now recognize Mr. Adderholt
Thank you.
for the purpose of making a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the bill be favorably reported to the full committee.
Question is on the motion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. I ask unanimous consent that staff be permitted to make technical and conforming changes to the bill and the report. Without objection, so ordered. Copies of the bill and report will be delivered to all full committee members' offices no later than 3 business days before full committee. Thank you and very much to everyone here. That concludes today's markup, and the committee now stands adjourned. Yeah.